Hello and welcome to the Corporate Wellness Therapist channel. I am Dr. Natalie Jones and I am a corporate wellness therapist. And it's my mission to help corporations remove toxicity and incivility in the work environment so that they can become a thriving and inclusive, productive workplace. Welcome to Consulting with Dr. Jones. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones, licensed therapist here. And I know it's been a while and I miss talking to you all. And so I'm so happy to be back. And I wanted to talk about something that's relevant in today's time. Um, in the United States, we're going through an economic crisis where you have all of these companies doing mass layoffs and things like that. And, I wanted to kind of speak to that a little bit because, in my experience, and again, I'm not, HR or anything like that, but I'm just a person who's worked many jobs over many years. I work most of the time, I've usually had two or three jobs at a time. And one of the things that I have noticed in all my years of working is a company is only as strong as their oldest OG who works there. So what that means is, a lot of times you will have like people who work for a company for many years. And again, there could be exceptions. Um, but when you have a company that like has people that have been working there 20 and 30 years, a lot of times that company will have more stability because you have people that have been there for forever. They know the ins and outs. They know how every branch of that company or that corporation's work. However, with all of the new changes that are coming with, people trying to, restructure the organization or, introduce AI and all of these types of things. What you have is you have a lot of companies where you have people that have been there the longest that are leaving. And in my experience, when your people who have been there the longest are leaving out the door and they're leaving in droves, and all you're left with are people who've been there only 3 to 6 months, that's usually a big downfall of the organization. You need the OG people there to, show people the ropes. You need the OG people there who are familiar with everything, who can introduce, and just show people the ropes. You need that there for a structured organization. Otherwise, when you have new people there, a lot of times what you may do, what I've seen companies do, is they shortchange the onboarding process. So they dump a bunch of new hires there. I'll give you an example. When I worked in corrections, this is what they would do, right? And when I left corrections, on my unit, I left after 4 years and 7 months, and so I was one of the longest. I was considered one of the seniors at that point, and so I was, like, the last person on my unit, with some longevity there. Everybody else, they were new. A newer, and so what tends to happen when you have people that have been there a long time and they're like, "Man, I'm out," that just starts like a staggering effect because when you have all these new hires that don't know, they're not onboarded correctly, they're just sort of dumped in, you might be wasting money on recruitment and retention because it creates a revolving door. There's no stability, there's no, on the team or on the units, you don't really have that structure with somebody who says, "Okay, well, this has worked. This is how this works." You don't have these teachers, right? You don't have these people there that can school, the new generation, and the new generation there's you also don't have that loyalty, there, and so with the new generation, they may feel like there's no loyalty. When I worked at corrections and you had new hires that got dumped, I saw people come in and walk out the same day that would never return to the job, and then once the OGs started leaving, because that creates a ripple effect. When the OGs start leaving and we start leaving together, That created a ripple effect. And for a long time, after I left my institution, they were operating at a deficit in staff. So they were operating roughly around 26% of their clinical team. And that stayed that way, at least from what I was informed, for quite some time. I don't know if they were ever able to recover that, just because a lot of people just went ahead and retired and they were like done with it just because of how the atmosphere changed, management had changed. So there was all this different rollover, and with all these rollovers and that strict enforcement, but without onboarding and without people feeling like, oh, especially when people don't feel like this company cares for them, they're out the door. And that could be an organization's biggest downfall. And I've seen that happen time and again when the OGs are on their way out. Of course, you can have those OGs where they're just negative and they bring toxicity. You can have that, but a lot of places where you have the good OGs and they're gone, they were very helpful. They were basically instrumental in helping you implement, streamline, simplify, train, and things like that. When you have people, good, solid, strong people like that leave in droves, that's not a good look, and you're gonna be spending an organization's gonna be spending more efforts and more money on recruitment and retention. So anyway, that's my thoughts about it. Um, Let me know what you guys think. I may create something a little bit more in depth with research, but this is more just my personal experience and talking about it. So, let me know what you guys think. And until next time, take care of yourselves, be well, and good luck.